And welcome back to the Midday Show. I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. Today, we are going to talk about Lewisburg's Country Cupboard. Big deal. They're going to change their hours, as well as what other local businesses might be doing to try to get to the fall. We're also going to talk about Little League World Series announcing their attendance policy for this year. A little bit of world news, too. We're going to talk about Afghanistan a little bit. President Biden's going to be speaking at 3:45. And then eventually we're going to get to Tim Tebow. But before all of that, Mark, how are you feeling today?
Mark has news.
Oh.
Mark ventured back to the cinema for the first time since pre-COVID.
All right.
I took in, I almost called it boat cruise, Jungle Cruise.
Okay.
Which I found to be enjoyable.
Yep.
Not the greatest movie of all time, but certainly I was not bored. Yeah. I thought it was, it had some, a lot of Pirates of the Caribbean feel to it. Mm-hmm. It had a little bit of National Treasure feel to it, which are both Disney movies, so it makes sense.
Yep.
I thought The Rock was brilliant, as usual.
Sure.
And I thought, what's her name is delightful.
Emily Blunt?
What's her name? Yes, Emily Blunt.
She is delightful.
Pants.
Have you seen her in Quiet Place 2? Or Quiet Place?
I saw Quiet Place.
Okay. I thought she was fantastic in A Quiet Place.
Here's the thing. I watched A Quiet Place because you told me 2 was coming out. Yes. And you were shocked that I never saw 1. And correct. I watched it. And it was one of those, I'm sure this happens to everyone nowadays. I was watching it while I was scrolling through my phone. Mm-hmm. I got about 20 minutes in.
Yep.
And I was like, I have no idea what's happened so far. And I quit for the night. And then the next night I started over and I was like, all right, I got to focus here a little bit.
Yeah.
So I thought A Quiet Place was good because I thought it was so unique.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like, that's a movie I don't think I'd ever watch again.
You have to put your phone away because that movie is unique in the sense of like, there's no noise.
You just have to
So you have to watch it because nothing's going to jolt you back to the screen. So if you're not fully invested in it, yeah, it's not a good watch.
That's a good word. You have to be fully invested. That is well said. And so did you see part 2?
I have not seen part 2 yet.
It is out, isn't it? It came out.
I believe it's been out.
That's what I thought.
I have not seen part 2 yet. I will here at some point eventually. The biggest thing, that one, I'm struggling with that one because that one, I should go back to a theater and try to watch it, but I think I'm too late.
I thought you were going to say too lazy.
No.
When you started that, it's like, well, you are kind of lazy.
I'm too, because those are movie, like, sounds cliche, those are movie theater movies.
I will say that the surround sound in the theater last night, I could hear stuff coming from all over.
Yeah.
And that made it cool. And obviously Disney, when The Rock's in a Disney movie, they're sparing no expense.
Yeah.
I thought it got hokey at times.
Sure.
It probably was a couple minutes longer than it needed to be.
2 hours was too long.
But I thought it was fun. The Rock is genuinely funny.
It's worth a one-time watch. I don't know if I'd see it again, but the first time I enjoyed it. Lewisburg's Country Cupboard, they're announcing they're going to be closed on Sunday and Mondays to end summer hours. And this kind of ties into what you and I have talked about before. Local businesses trying to figure out different ways to make it work, survive, hang on, do what we have to do to get through the summer, get to the fall. This one's, I don't want to say this one is unique, but Country Cupboard on a Sunday has to be one of the busiest places in our region.
I mean, it is legendary around here. It is a staple. And I think from the way, they may always be closed on Mondays because a lot of restaurants are closed on Mondays.
Yes.
And the announcement, I think it just said between now and Labor Day, which I think there's 3 Sundays between now and Labor Day, they're closing on Sundays because they're short-staffed, just like everyone else is.
Right.
And their staff is overworked. And they're just kind of like trying to step back. And again, I don't know. And you know this from the restaurant business. When I was in the sub shop business, September was a much worse month for us than August.
Oh, September is brutal.
So I was surprised that now their business is different because it's a lot of older clientele and it's a lot. So I was surprised they picked August as opposed to kind of like sprinting through the Labor Day finish line and then saying, we're going to be closed for every Sunday in September. But either way, it's because of the lack of help and to just give their troops a rest.
Yeah. So the key part of what you made there was to give their troops a rest. So they're selling this off as if this is an opportunity for us to kind of reward end of summer, reward our loyal employees. And that's the best part about this, is the way they're selling it. So there's no doubt they're not the first ones to do it. I'm sure there are other people out there finding creative ways and making sacrifices to give their employees time off and trying to make sure that mentally and physically, like, they're doing okay. Because I'm sure in that industry, there are people that are going 7 days a week.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
And I don't know anyone at Country Cupboard. I can't tell you the last time I've been there because it's, way over in Union County. But but kudos to them, because and I know that their Tuesday business is not as good as their Sunday business.
It just can't be.
If from a pure mercenary money standpoint, if they were to just say to their employees, we'll be off Monday and Tuesday, but they're giving their employees a weekend day so they can go have a Saturday night. If they're off, they can go Saturday night, because I'm sure they close at 7, 8, whatever. And so that is very noble of the business, because any person would rather have a Sunday off than and then you got Sunday into Monday, as opposed to Monday into Tuesday. And you're like, woohoo.
Yes, because the grind had to be very. You and I can hear it actually where we are right now.
Yeah.
We're actually on the backside of a restaurant here in Williamsport, and you can tell, like, it is a grind. Even before COVID, like, those positions and those jobs.
Some days it's grindier than others.
Yes.
Some days it's a dance party, and some days there are disagreements.
Yes. Well, one of the biggest complaints, like, if you're in that industry, one of the biggest complaints, most of your, like, legitimate complaints come from your most loyal workers, because they get left hanging by the people that aren't showing up. So it goes back to the idea of kudos to the Country Cupboard, because it sounds like they're going to reward those people who have been loyal and help them kind of ride out the pandemic and get through COVID, and reward them a little bit at the summer.
Yep. So
kudos to
them.
Good
for them. So no Country Cupboard for the next couple Sundays.
Let's do this. NorthcentralPa.com, admission policy for the 2021 Little League Baseball World Series. Forced to change. Public attendance will not be accepted. We heard about this at the end of last week, but unfortunately didn't get to talk about it on the show. I was surprised. Were you surprised?
And this is the thing, and this is what I keep asking people. Every time this gets discussed, I keep saying, Penn State, which is an hour that way, are they still allowing 100,000 people in? And I don't get the 100,000, no 1,000. Like, what? How does this make any semblance of? Now, I understand one of the differences between Penn State, because in Penn State, the vast majority of people are somewhere local, relatively local, and with this, they'd be bringing fans from all over, and they don't want the COVID virus to be brought from hot spots and whatever. But, we've talked about that it's here. People are going to get it. Like, you can only protect it so much. But that's the thing that shocks me. And I know Penn State has gone to masks, and they haven't played a football game yet, even though we're, 2 weeks away or something like that. Yes. So we'll see if it actually does come to pass.
Yes.
But if 7 days apart, nobody in Williamsport, 100,000 people right up the road, that I can't balance that in my brain.
So what we're reporting at NorthcentralPa.com at the end of last week, each of those teams, so of the 16 teams that are still coming to South Williamsport, each team is going to receive 250 team passes.
Okay.
So there's still, it's not like the team is coming. It's kind of goes back to what you hinted at with all or nothing. And so you're still having 250 people come from each community. Those people, like, they're still going to go downtown. Like, they're still going to go out to eat. They're not, I'm assuming they're not just going to stay in their hotel and at the Little League World Series.
Can I just tell you what just crossed my mind when you said that, not to take this into a different realm? Little leagues are always hurting for money, unless you have, unless you're in a super affluent area. But all you sports are always, none of them are rich.
Sure.
So you get 250 passes to a place where nobody can get into.
Sure.
So each kid, there's 12 kids on a roster. So you've got parents and siblings, because you got to bring the younger siblings. So but each player, say each family gets 5. We'll say 5. That's a fair enough. So that's 60.
Yes.
Now you've got a couple coaches, but they're included in because they're part of the family.
Sure.
So you got 6. So each league now has 190, somewhere between 175 and 200 extra tickets.
Yes.
How much are they? This is immediately a fundraiser for the league.
Oh, sure.
They can go on eBay and scalp them. Like they would pay, because it's a pass. I assume it's a pass for the whole week.
I would assume so too.
So here we go. For $250, you will get a week-long pass. So a family to spend $1,000 on vacation to come, and a family of 4 to come for $1,000. So they took 4 of these. I think revenue streams have just been created for some of these teams.
I do not disagree with that at all. So like going back, so there's going to be 200 people from each community coming here. And they're going to go downtown. They're going to eat. They're going to go to different places. They're not going to just stay in their little bubble at the Little League World Series complex. So, I mean, I'm not great at math. 200 times 16.
Well, 100 times 16 is 1,600, so it's 3,200.
So over 3,000 people, then you throw in ESPN and you throw in whoever. Like, there's going to be 4,000, 5,000 people from outside of our area coming here in the next week. I just think the idea that this was going to how much of a difference will it make, I guess.
Well, and I get it. From the mathematical standpoint, the difference between 5,000 people and 45,000 people is different.
Sure.
But I don't know. I don't know if it's good. I mean, I give Little League credit because they're losing money.
Sure.
So it's not like they're making out. And
not at all.
Nobody else in there, So these are impossible decisions to make.
They are.
And I'm not saying they made the wrong decision, because I don't know what they based it on. I don't have, I have all the science you guys have too that we can read.
Sure.
But I'm not saying I disagree with the decision, but I'm saying I'm surprised by the decision.
I was surprised as well. And again, it goes back to the idea of just, if they would have said parents only, I would have been like, oh, they're really, all right, they're taking, this is for real. They're trying to,
right.
But then you're throwing out 200 tickets. So all of a sudden, 200 people from a different community can come, but 200 people from our community can't. It just, so again, you've hinted at this. I don't know what the answers are. I don't know if there even was a right one, but then why 200 from this community, but not 200 from that community? And it just, I don't know. I don't know if you can logically sell it to me.
Yeah. I don't know if there's, I mean, obviously there's no good answer, and whatever you come up with is going to be.
Right.
But we'll see. We'll see.
It's tough. Do you like the 16 teams from the U.S.? Have you been watching it leading up to
I have not.
Okay.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Once you're here, you might as well play.
Right.
We talked about off the air locally if this will be the most disinterested Little League World Series ever because people can't go.
So we were talking about coverage and kind of how to handle it. And the thing that I kind of hinted to was there is no, the local 10-year-old eating the hot dog or the local 12-year-old sliding down the hill on the cardboard. Those photos just aren't going to be there. Right. There's not going to be a ton of local flavor by the way this is being described right now.
I like the people who cut the back legs off their chairs so they sit on the bank. And
I wonder, have you ever wondered, maybe they can use them at the beach? I've always wondered, is that a one and done? That is the time they use it.
I think so. They go to Little League. I mean, there must be other places
if you're at the beach, the way the dune kind of depending on what beach
you could probably
figure out a way to make that work.
But I don't think. I think those are Little League World Series. But they use it every year.
That's true.
They're they're plastic and they keep bringing them back. And
that's true.
So yeah, it'll be interesting. Now, obviously, the TV, it is a very, very good TV product.
Oh, that's the other problem too.
But now with no fans, how much worse of a TV product is it? I don't know.
It's a good question. I mean, but that's the part of it. They're still, for ESPN, they're still going to have fans.
Correct.
You're still going to be able to, like, here are the parents, here are the grandparents, here's the little brother here. So you still have the appeal of what you would be looking for. Really, the only thing you don't have is the big scan out. Like, you just don't have the panorama of welcome to South Williamsport. And
they could change it. They could, as time goes on, they could say, you know what, for the second weekend, as we get to the Final Four, whatever it is. I was going to say the American final, but they're all American finals this year, the American semifinals.
Yes.
They could say, hey, we're going to take 5,000 people, and you can't sit in the bleachers, but you can sit on the bank because the families of the teams are in the bleachers, and you guys stay in the bank and come at your own risk. You know, they could always adjust as they go along, and you know, we've been living in a COVID adjusting world.
See, to me, what you just described seems like a very flexible, possible solution.
Yeah.
Is to make the outfield for local and then make the actual seats in the stadium for the parents and for the passes. It'll be interesting to see if they try to attempt to do something like that as the week moves on. You're on to something.
I'm a thinker, buddy. I'm a thinker.
I like that idea.
I tell my kids that, and they still don't listen, but I try.
Okay, let's dive into this. Taliban has taken control in Afghanistan. I've tried to stay off of Twitter in the last hour or two, not to get like completely saturated by it. But after seeing the presidential palace in Kabul, President Biden is going to be speaking from the White House at 3:45 today. U.S. troops, last I saw, have taken control of a section of the international airport as well to try to evacuate people from the embassy and different citizens. So which way do you want to dive into it first?
Well, this is what I am not a political speech guy. Like, there are lots of years I don't, like when the State of the Union's up, I'm like, what is he going to say? And when, I kind of watch the debates just so I get the talking points, but presidential speeches do not really do it for me. I cannot wait for this one because I keep asking myself over and over, what in the world is he going to say? If you're a speechwriter, like for him, because he don't write his own speech,
sure,
what are they coming up with? And at 12:39, they are, what did you say, 3:45?
I believe it's 3:45.
So they're 3 hours away. Is it finalized? I'm picturing Michael J. Fox and the American president making drafts and making adjustments. What can he possibly say?
First, can we both agree there's no way it's finalized right now? There's no, that thing is going to be like an episode of The West Wing when they're walking through the halls and passing. That is not going to be done until 3:44 when it's getting like punched into the teleprompter. I go back to this idea of, we talk a lot of the time, like James Franklin has this amazing speech when he was coaching at Vanderbilt about how like the ships are burning, there's no turning back. And so to me, there's one or two options here. You run towards it and you say like, this was mishandled or this was a mistake, and here are the ways we're going to try to correct this. Like, here's what we're doing pushing forward. And what you try to do is focus on the future or the present rather than like backtracking and saying like, well, this didn't work or that. Like, you just try to push and kind of
I would agree, because there is no backtrack explanation that does any good.
Not right now. I mean, it's just tough. And we've talked about this before. So this is one angle of it. And this isn't necessarily like a left-right angle. We talked about military budgets, and we talked about how much the United States spends on its military. And on paper, it sounds phenomenal to be like, we're going to end a 20-year war. Or it sounds great that we are going to bring the troops home, right? That it has a great ring to it. But from a financial point, we spend over $750 billion a year on the U.S. military. And so the idea of to not use it, to not have it withhold footing on something that is very slippery, that from a financial standpoint is a little like, I don't want to use the word infuriating, but it's very hard to justify it. There is a reason we put so much money into this.
No,
And to walk away,
that's a good point.
To walk away from it when like the footing is not there or the holding is not there, I get it. It's tough. Like if you're a military member and you're somewhere and you're not sure why you're there, what you're fighting for, like this is an example of that. Like there are things that are worth holding, right? Like there's things worth kind of keeping our foothold until we know for sure. There's a reason there's a $750 billion budget.
Well, I think too that everyone who runs for office says things to get elected. And they have this belief that once I get elected, then I'll figure it out and everyone will follow me and everyone will love me and we'll all do the right thing. But I just got to get the job.
Back on here. Are we there?
There
We
you are.
it.
You are back in the New York
I think we're good to go. Go ahead and say kind of like your ending there again real quick.
They called it
what you had read.
One of the writers called him frighteningly oblivious, called Biden.
Yeah.
And I don't, just those two words just rung and hit home because I don't know if you could put a better description in a concise, consolidated, more accurate description.
Yes. There is the fine line, and I said like there's a fine line between being oblivious or being optimistic. This, as I started reading about this morning, it feels a little bit of both. It felt like there was definitely some obliviousness to what might happen, but it also felt like there was a ton of optimism. Like there was a sense like they actually thought there might be a chance to go to table with the Taliban, or there might actually be a chance to like have some sort of understanding or agreement. And that's just it's very apparent now that that was not the case. And so I wonder how much of, like when they say oblivious, I wonder how much of that was just like unrealistic optimism.
Right. Well, I think one of the other things too, and the older I get, the more I see this, and I'm sure you have too, and other people have too. It's not just in politics, but in business or in life, where people with power and authority sometimes have this belief, this mentality that if they say something to you because they're in charge and because you can't like anyway publicly refute it or you can't shoot down their idea, that you're going to buy it. Because, and I remember this back with the baseball strike back in 1993.
Okay.
When did they 94. 94, they went on strike because there's no World Series. And the owners kept coming out and saying this stuff. And you're just like, nobody's believing this.
Right.
Like, you can't cry poor when I know they're millionaires, you're billionaires. No, and then when they settled it, it was like, you've just called these players greedy SOBs for 9 months, and they ruined the World Series, and they're ruining baseball, and now you come to an agreement, and you're like, hey, come watch these players.
Sure.
And people we're not that gullible like Pavlovian, like, we'll do whatever you say. You say like it, we'll like it. You say don't like it, we won't like it.
Yes.
And politicians are like that. They go to the microphone in front of the camera, and they say everything's great, this guy's bad, I'm wonderful, and all these things. And that's what's going to be so fascinating for me today, because as you said, I agree with you. The best way for Biden to approach this is say, this was a disaster. We realize that, and this is what we're going to do now. And politicians just don't do that. I mean, very few people in power do that, whether you're a businessman or a parent or anybody.
Right. This is just kind of another way to go off of it. I do, like, today is an example of, you and I've talked about in elections. Now more than ever, there's very much like a school president style of campaigning or running. So we've joked about how, like, we're going to have 2 lunches and the sodas are going to be free. And it's just this idea, like, we're going to get rid of college loan and we're going to bring all the troops home and we're going to end the 20-year war. And I think today is a little bit like, this is what happens when we run elections off of, like, school campaigns, where you're just kind of saying the thing that sounds good, or you're just saying it. And both parties are guilty of it. Like, every politician is guilty of it. But this is, to me, this felt like a much better thing to say than it was an actual fear.
But the reason they say those school elections is because that's how it works.
Yeah.
It gets you elected if you just say what people want to hear, and it doesn't matter what the substance is. And we don't have the ability to look at our own party and say,
right,
I know but we can't do it that way.
No.
We have to do this. And you have to bubble the people with optimism.
Sure.
You can't give any buckets of cold water during election time. Say, oh, no, next year it might be a little tough.
Yeah.
It's going to be, we come up and we say COVID's going to be gone by Easter, because we just espouse this hope, even if it's baseless hope, because none of the politicians want to come up and say, things could look grim for the next grim.
Sure. The interesting part will be for anybody who crossed the aisle this past presidential election. This, like, 345 will be kind of a crucial point for you, because for a lot of people across the aisle, it was this idea of, like, I just want somebody that will admit when they're wrong. I just want somebody who will speak the way I want them to. I just want somebody who will, like, maintain the office in, like, a mature manner. And so what would be more mature, what would be more self-defacing than stepping up and saying, like, we made a mistake here? And if he doesn't come out and say that, how different is this administration? Like, how different is he than?
Agreed.
So this is very interesting at 345 for anybody who crossed the aisle.
And again, it's a good thing that when we started this, we said we were never going to talk politics.
Yeah, right.
But I never thought Biden was going to win the second time anyway, because he's too old. So, and this obviously hasn't helped. I think he and the Democratic Party are fortunate that this happened so far away from the election, because there will be so many other world events that happen between now and 2024. Sure. If this was really close to the next election, it would have just won it for the Republicans.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about that. Like, I haven't, as reading everything else. So I don't want to say, I have to think about that. I hadn't thought about it from that perspective before.
I think it's far enough away that by the time the election gets here, it'll be buffered, and it'll be a talking point, no doubt about it.
Sure.
But if it was closer, this would be the death knell.
It would certainly be a shift in attitude or general perception.
Yes.
Interesting. I have to think about that. This was let's talk about this as kind of like the last part to wrap it up. When, like, this spans over 4 different presidents. It spans over.
It went all the way back to Bush?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe it spanned over 4 sets of presidents.
Well, they said 20 years, so yeah.
Yes. every president, the last 3 at some point have began pulling troops out or have, cut back the numbers, things like that. Do you feel like, as a left-centered voter, do you feel like this more so fell onto his lap? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, because there will be, you still have to look at it from the perception of like, this was almost 2 decades long.
Correct. And there are lots of complicated ways to look at it, and I'm certainly not a military expert, but like you said, if we're going to spend that much, for what? Like, what are we doing with it? And should we have more troops other places? One of you've just put so much time and investment into this that you realize at some point, when you talk to people in general, at some point we have to leave.
Sure.
But do those people really understand if we leave, it looks like this? Yes. And that's the aspect. Would you like to get out of Afghanistan? I'm sure 99% of the public says yes. Sure. But that 99% of the public doesn't understand what getting out of Afghanistan means.
Right.
So, to a degree, it fell in his lap. But when you're the president, stuff falls into your lap.
I think what you just said there is very crucial, because I think we're to the point now where you almost have to accept the fact that when you become president of the United States, you are inheriting stuff. Like, you are inheriting it. And so is it fair that that's how you're going to be judged? Of course it isn't. But how else do you judge somebody? Because that's the job. It's a 4-8-year cycle. Like, you are inheriting what was done before you, just like every other president. And so I am wondering, like you talked about, like the shift in an election, if this would have happened later. I do wonder how many people will try to evaluate this as something that happened before him.
Well, and I don't know if you and I talked about this, or Jerry and I talked about this, that a lot of the Big Short, the housing crisis, that a lot of the reason that culminated, a lot of the stuff was created by Clinton, because Clinton changed regulations.
Right.
So it happened.
That was one of the reasons.
Bill, it collapsed when Bush was there, but they started weakening it when Clinton was there. So yes, and everybody has this throughout history of what other presidents do, and you've got to deal with it.
And if you go back through history, Bush and Obama were working hand in hand to try to de-escalate the situation. And part of that is because what you just described. Like, Bush kind of was like, I know what it felt like to inherit this.
Right.
I don't want to, when I'm telling you right now, like, when you go back through the last couple of decades, Bush comes off significantly better than what I think anybody would have imagined him coming off as. Like, when you actually go back through and you start talking about 2008 and you start talking about 2001, and he was not, don't get me wrong, no one's a perfect president. He was far from a perfect president. But when he was leaving office, there was very much a sentiment of time to move on, time to, and I'm telling you, when you go back through, it actually is not nearly the train wreck that they. I don't want to dive into
Well, and again, the thing that was shocking about Bush when we went back is how many people were like Colin Powell was resigning.
Yeah.
In the second term, it seemed like he's a good guy. I don't think anyone debates that. He seems like a very likable guy. I know the movie, and he was a spoiled rich kid. But so is my bartender. Correct.
Right.
But because of that, it seemed like he surrounded himself with really good people. Yeah. And then a lot of the really good people started stepping aside. So who knows what was going on there.
Sure. But the general point was, there was a sense of Bush understood that somebody left him and he inherited something he wasn't, wasn't something. So there was that kind of cooperation, moving on to the next phase and trying to de-escalate 2008. And that was part of kind of the whole Big Short story that wasn't really taught. They don't really dive into the political side.
No, they do not.
In the Big Short, but that was part of it. So I am curious, as we kind of talk about this, I wonder, I do think there will be a sentiment of this happened on his watch. And I don't think those people are wrong. I also think there's a sentiment of this was inherited. And so, but at some point, I don't know how you judge a president not based off of what he inherited. I feel like that is the job.
Well, I think I don't think you'll find anyone that would argue the fact that he inherited this and he had to deal with it. The issue is now like 1,000% of the people are saying the way he handled it was less than stellar.
Sure.
So, and now I am fascinated by 345. I am fascinated to hear what he says. And so my prediction is he's going to go in between of what.
I don't know how you do that.
He's going to say that it didn't go as well, but by the best intelligence that we had and our experts thought that it wouldn't, and obviously it's wrong. Right. And he's going to say it went really badly, but it's still not really our fault.
I mean, and this, like, I don't want to say something too controversial, but I had said to you earlier today, he's almost lucky it went so well for the Taliban, because this could have ended, like, he could be walking up to the mic right now with like 1,000, 3,000, 5,000.
With just gunshots ringing and blood in the streets.
Dead Afghanis. And like, that's not what he's walking. So it's I'm curious to see what he says. Very curious, because in a very weird, messed up kind of way, this almost went better than it should have. I know that sounds weird, but when you consider the ramifications and how many people probably could have lost their lives.
Well, yes, it was for a hostile takeover.
Yes,
there was very little bloodshed.
Yes,
so that it is a valid point. If this was just like violence for weeks in the streets, they just kind of were like, we're taking over, and they said okay. So that is a fascinating point that you brought up that I never thought of till this morning when you brought it up, and history will relay that. We'll find out in the long run.
Because he's walking up to the mic with, I don't know how to say it. He's walking up to the mic in a situation that is awful, but also could have been
awfuler,
so much worse. So it'll be 345.
He is walking, to segue to last week, he is walking up to the mic like Captain Jack Sparrow stepping off the ship that just went under.
A little bit. We'll see what happens. This is for us. We're going to have some fun. Tim Tebow. Did you finally watch it?
You made me watch it, so I watched it.
Tim Tebow made his preseason debut with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's bringing with us some questionable plays and even more debatable topics. There are a couple of takes here, but just to sell it up. For those of you who don't know, Tim Tebow was a college football quarterback for the Florida Gators, won multiple Heismans.
2 Heismans.
Won multiple national championships.
No, just one.
Just one.
Yep.
Ended up being the quarterback for the Denver Broncos, had a nice run one season.
He wasn't terrible.
Won some games maybe he shouldn't have won, but he won.
Right.
He then was a broadcaster, devout Christian.
What happened? He was the greatest thing on earth.
Yes.
To much of the football world, even though he wasn't the best player, but he was in a lot of ways the biggest name in the game. But that's when Peyton Manning became available.
Right.
And Denver's like, well, I mean, Tebow's done good things for us, but if we can get Peyton Manning, let's go with him.
Yes.
And then he became expendable, and he hasn't really played since.
The crazy part is everything we just described, I believe, happened before 2012.
Oh, we're talking a decade ago.
Yes. So now it is 2021, and Tim Tebow has signed on with his former college coach, Urban Meyer, who is now the head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yes.
And he is trying to play tight end, a position in which he has never played. Now,
he played it New England brought him in as a tight end.
Okay.
And the Jets he played for the Jets a little bit. Okay. He was mostly like a red zone quarterback, but this kind of transition, there have been a lot of people. I say a lot of people. There have been Urban Meyer's not the first one that said, well, if he can't play quarterback in the NFL, let's make him a tight end.
Okay.
So Jacksonville is making him a tight end.
And it is not going well.
They pulled out a couple clips that were a little embarrassing. I think he played 17 snaps, they said, in the preseason game.
4 out of 17 is not good.
I think lots of people miss blocks. I think if you highlight it on certain guys, like you would see whiffs like this.
Not like what he did.
He doesn't look good. I feel bad for Tebow from the standpoint I think he is a victim. And this has nothing to do with last night. If you haven't seen him, just Google. I Googled Tim Tebow.
Yes.
The first answer was just Tim Tebow. The second one was Tim Tebow block.
Right.
And you can find them, and there are a couple. One, he kind of nudges a guy and then ends up hitting his own lineman. And,
right.
But I think if it wasn't for the fanatical, and I mean fanatical following that he had, that he could have played other places. Because he won a play. Steeler fans remember, he beat the Steelers in overtime on an 80-yard slant. Sure. He was not, when he took over in Denver, they were 1-4. And he was very different.
Sure.
And I think one of the other aspects is because he was different kind of before Cam Newton showed up and kind of before Jackson showed up in Baltimore, who's now changed the world. Obviously, Russell Wilson runs a lot. But I think if he showed up now, the world would be able to handle him better. But back then, they were just like, he doesn't throw well enough. He doesn't throw well enough. But Jacksonville could have signed him as a quarterback 10 years ago, and they wouldn't have done any worse in the last decade.
No, but he's not good.
He's not
good right now. The film.
As really a tight end, he's not good.
He is atrocious. So because there's a lot of different takes. The take that I agreed with the most was somebody said, imagine trying to win an NFL contract and you're a running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars and you're fighting for a contract. And in the third quarter of a preseason game, you get the ball handed off to you. And 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, you're already being tackled because Tim Tebow is missing a block.
But you get a chance then to make a guy miss.
No.
You can juke him in the backfield.
Because his former college coach is the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars and is on some weird crusade to prove that Tim Tebow can play professional football. So now your opportunity to make money for your livelihood is dissipating because Tim Tebow's getting a fifth chance 10 years later to be an NFL player.
I get it.
It's very, very bizarre. Then you throw in the whole aspect of Colin Kaepernick and everything that comes along with that. And this idea of like, you look at the quarterbacks that have never had a chance to get back into the NFL. And Tim Tebow not only had a chance to do it at quarterback, he's had a chance to do it at tight end. He's had multiple opportunities, and even 10 years later now is getting another one. And it is very obvious on the film. He does not belong on the field.
But I think in Tim Tebow's world, and I'd have to go pull up his stats, I think he went starter in Denver. Mm-hmm. We get to the playoffs. They win a playoff game against the Steelers. Then they went to New England and lost.
Okay.
And then he has never been a starting quarterback again because they brought in Peyton Manning. Now, obviously, you bring in Peyton Manning when you can, and he took him to a Super Bowl and all this stuff. But it is, and Tebow was young. He was 25.
Okay.
It is hard to find, when you go through the annals of history, to find any person who got to the playoffs and won a playoff game. And the team, I think they ended up 8-8 to win their division. But they were 1-4 when he was injected into the starting lineup.
Sure.
So as a guy who went 7-4 as a starter that season, 1-1 in the playoffs, and then never gets another crack with anybody. So there's almost an unfairness. And you say, well, why did he never get another crack? I think part of it because people said he couldn't throw. They didn't understand the style. But because his legion of fans were crazy. And I think organizations were afraid of that.
That I don't disagree with. But you're still like, I'm a 23-year-old running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2021. Everything you said just now doesn't matter to me.
Well, it's because you're selfish. Because it's all about you.
Because in 2021, this is my opportunity. Like, this is my chance to change. And like, obviously football's a sport and it's not a big deal. But when you're like a 23-year-old kid out of like Dade County, Florida, and your family has no actual wealth or no actual backing, and now you're fighting for the chance for a $100,000 contract from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and you're getting tackled 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage because some like 38-year-old dude.
He's not that old.
He's pretty old.
He's
some
not 38.
Dude in his 30s is like trying to play tight end for the first time.
Well,
that's tough.
I think
that's hard. It's hard for me to feel bad for him and not the running back getting tackled 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Well, the one I agree with that point. I will make 2 points though in rebuttal.
Okay.
Number one, the one play that they keep showing where he bumped the guy and then hit his own guy.
Yes.
He washed the guy down and the guy's still running. So that running back didn't get tackled in the backfield.
Okay.
Even though Tebow gave like a pillowy, soft bump and then ran into his own guy.
Sure.
The guy cut back and got in the way. So anyway, but the other aspect is they're not, obviously they want to see what they do on the field, but they're seeing these guys in practice. They're seeing what they do, what their character is like, what their work ethic is like. Tebow's not costing anybody a job on one bad block, on one bad. He only played 17 plays. Some of them were passes. He's not costing anyone a job.
You don't think so?
No, because the coaches get to see this kid
you don't
in
think
practice.
He's taking a roster spot from some young tight end?
Well, if he makes the roster, then yes, he will take a roster spot from a tight end. But he's not the running backs around him and stuff.
Yeah. Here's the other irony, and it hasn't worked out yet. They have a shiny new toy at quarterback by the name of Trevor Lawrence.
Yes.
And he should be, if you live in Jacksonville, it's probably the most important thing in the city of Jacksonville right now is Trevor Lawrence's health.
Oh, correct. You would want like the Secret
idea,
Service around this guy.
The idea that we are in a world where 3 to 4 weeks from now, Tim Tebow might be protecting the blind side of Trevor Lawrence is insane to me. It makes no sense.
I can't come up with any debate. Well, and we said before the show, well, then people say, well, he's a tight end, just put him in on passing situations. Well, then you know you're going to throw.
Yes.
Now, if you want to, and that's the world that we've got to now as well with tight. If it's 3rd and long and you're going to bring in 4 receivers, if you're just sending him out to run a pattern, then bring in some guy who's quicker and who's just run patterns his whole life. You have to find a better. So if he can't block at all, he can't play tight end.
I don't understand.
I'm with you.
Why he can't. No, this will be the last thing I say about it. I don't understand why he can't be an assistant coach. I don't understand how anything he's doing right now could not have been done as like an assistant coach. I
agree with that. I think he would probably, I think life as a broadcaster would probably be better. And he's been a broadcaster on SEC networks and all that stuff. And he's been playing a lot of minor league baseball too, which obviously now is over.
Because he could still jump in practice.
He could.
Like just because he's an assistant coach doesn't mean he can't throw on a helmet and like just do all the things he's already doing.
The other thing, as an assistant coach, he's not on the roster. And if quarterbacks start going down and you're like, we need an emergency quarterback who knows our system, all of a sudden you sign him. And I'm not disagreeing with that either.
I just don't understand.
It's an interesting case going forward. Yes.
It was interesting. Let's do this. Joe Garrison. Today is the first official day of fall practice. That's right. Heat acclimation is over on the football field. Do you have any good first day of practice stories? First day of practice stories. It's my least favorite day. Which I know sounds weird.
People hate.
Because for most people, like it's the first 2 days for me are my least favorite days of the season, official days.
It's.
I love the summer leading up. I love the fall leading up. I love the week after the first week, and you're getting into the first 2 days are the worst.
We had a guy, when I was a sophomore, he was a lineman. He was a senior lineman named Craig Gray. And I doubt it happened on the first. Oh, no. Because back then we had to go shorts for a couple of days before you're allowed to hit. Now they have heat acclimation, but we had to go. Craig Gray once dropped down in the middle of practice, started rolling around on the ground saying a bee just flew down my pants. And I don't know how that happened. We don't know how it was. But it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in practice, where it was like stop, drop, and roll, except it was just one guy. And he's like, there's a bee in my pants, there's a bee. And it's funny when it's a little guy, but it's even funnier when it's a big lineman who's rolling around in panic because there's a bee in his pants. If that would have happened on the first day, then that would be my best first day story, but I don't think it did.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I have anything really good. I wish I had
a good first day. I don't really have a good first day.
I don't think I do either.
Story. Nothing. I mean, like I've thrown up before. Like in college, like I threw up on the first day.
Really?
My first Division II practice on the first day, all over the place.
Because you were out of shape?
Oh, brutal.
Way to come in out of shape.
Brutal.
I thought you were an athlete. I thought you knew I thought you cared.
I was like a specialist.
What's that, like a long snapper?
I don't know if anyone's defined me as an athlete. I think I've been defined as a specialist.
It
was funny. Like when I first got there, the whole goal was to put on weight because I was like 155, like 160, trying to play in the.
And it's hard to do a lot of cardio and pack the pounds on.
So 8 months, I was just like, they were just like eat and play. Well, then all of a sudden, like now, like my red shirt's done, like I'm going in, like, and it was brutal. Like it was the first time I had done like real cardio. I had played basketball, but like track cardio, like real cardio. I mean, and my body wasn't shot.
I'll tell you what's fascinating. And I just had this conversation with someone else about weight and athletes. And because everyone in life, I say everyone, 99% of society is trying to lose weight. And I was just talking to people how when my brother pitched, it was such a struggle for him during the season to keep his weight up because he had that optimal, like, this is my fighting weight. I think he wanted to be at like 185.
Yeah.
But because it's so hot on even he's like, on the days that I don't pitch, I'm still out shagging fly balls. We're still out throwing. We're still out doing our running, and we're in the weight room and things like that.
Right.
And so he was trying to keep his weight up. And you see it sometimes with football linemen, especially in the where they're more in the South, because they've got to keep their mass up.
Right.
But it's hard to balance the cardio. And as you said, you want to keep your weight up, but you have to keep in shape. And so athletics is like tough. The one place in the world where you'll find people to struggle to gain weight when they're trying to, as opposed to the rest of society, we're all trying to lose weight.
Yeah, no, it's tough. What was the other one? I can't find it now. There's one other comment that I wanted to share, and now I cannot find it. That's okay. We'll have to find it again. So that's the show for today.
There it is.
Anything else? You got anything else for us?
Some dude threw a no-hitter for Arizona over the weekend.
I saw that.
His first big league start.
Yeah.
It wasn't his first big league game. He pitched out of the pen maybe 2 or 3 times.
Yes.
But I think the last time it happened was the 50s.
Dad had a good reaction, correct?
It was like 60 years since your kid throws a no-hitter first. I mean, first big league start, you're chewing your fingernails off.
Well, that's not what was going around on social media was the dad's reaction. Like the story wasn't that it was his first start or that the story was like his dad like having an emotional reaction.
And I think he's not like a 21-year-old. I think he's like 27.
Okay.
So it means he's bounced around in the minors a little while, and he's so to finally get there and like this whole belief like you can do it, and then to go throw a no-hitter. And the Diamondbacks suck. So it's not like if you pitch against the Diamondbacks, people have been like, oh, they're terrible. They lose every night anyway.
Right.
But no, it was so that is a good story.
Yeah, it's a great one.
And also the Phillies are out of first.
Yeah.
There that went.
Okay. Maybe we'll go live at 3:45.
Should we? Should we do play-by-play of what's going on?
Could do play-by-play.
Could you imagine that? Like, I can't believe he said that. Did he really say that? Or
we could do that.
He said that well. I don't know. What do you think? That's your last. Give me a gut. Is he going to do well at 3:45?
I mean, well is a very broad.
When it's said and done, are you going to say I'm impressed?
I will be impressed if he's willing to just say like that did not go the way we had hoped, and here's what we're doing.
Do you think he's going to say that?
And listen, like we had talked about this before, like you're inheriting messes, like like all this stuff. My whole thing isn't that like, I don't want him to do that because it means Biden is to blame. I want him to do that because I'm hoping that there will someday be a president that's just willing to say like, hey, like we got this one wrong. Like,
so we are in full agreement that he has to be 100% accountable and then talk about where we're going from here.
It would be,
we're in agreement that's what he should do. But
let me say
do you think he will?
It would be refreshing. It would be refreshing to have someone come up to the mic and just be like, we got this one wrong. It would be nice.
I think he's got to say that a little because it's so obvious that he did. I don't think he's going to. I don't think he's going to take the brunt of it like you wish he would.
You said, well, no, it's not even about him taking the brunt of it. again, like,
I
don't hate the guy.
Take accountability.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he's going to take as much accountability.
I don't hate the guy. And I'm not saying that like the whole world should fall down on him. For me, it's just that idea of like, regardless of what you inherit, whether it's good or bad, like when you become in control of it, like that is the mess you are inheriting. And so are you going to come up to the mic and be like, and listen, he doesn't even have to use like, if I was writing this speech for him, I am using very vague pronouns. Like I'm using we a lot. And we could mean his administration. We could mean his party. We could mean the country. We could mean him and the presidents before him. Like I'm being as vague. If I'm a speechwriter, I am as vague as I can possibly be when I'm speaking. So it's not about him taking the brunt of it. I would just like to see, it would be refreshing for the country for us to step up to the podium and be like, we probably got this one wrong, and here are the things we're trying to do next.
And you think
I don't want to talk about what happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I don't want to talk about like point the finger. I just want it, hey, this is not okay, this is wrong, and here's what we're going to do. Because then, like, now we're having a whole different conversation.
Do you think he's going to do it?
I think it would be I think in this polar world, like in this world of polarization, I think it would be very, very difficult for him. However, here's what I will say. He's older, and he is somebody that it's already being discussed. It will be very hard for him to win again. And there's going to be pushback from the party that he shouldn't run again. So
you're saying
if there is anybody,
what does he have to lose?
If there is anybody to fall on the sword to kind of like do that, now whether or not he does it, I don't know. But I'm just saying, like,
I know you don't know. I don't know. I'm asking for a prediction.
This isn't like he's 42 and he's like trying to figure out how to run again. And like,
I don't think he's going to do as well as you think or as you hope he is. I think you're going to be disappointed. That's my gut.
But the sad part is I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see. 3:45. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Thank you to all of our sponsors, and be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com to check out all of our local news. Did I forget anything?
Nope. You done good, kid. You done good.
Go enjoy the rest of your days, and we will be back tomorrow. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. Have a good one.
We'll see ya.